Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here. How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on, it's gonna be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, October the 19th, 2022, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan. How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know that we do, as we are a news podcast, we do try to watch our language, but sometimes words do fly. At the same time, there may be things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, apologies, guys. We ran very late. So if you are watching, I appreciate it. If you're watching the playback, that's cool too. But let's get into it. We might as well talk about the elephant in the room, quiet quitting. Really, that quiet quitting, as for all we all know, is literally and figuratively bullshit, which it really is. I mean, companies are doing everything but pay workers more, give workers benefits, actually give them the things they need to actually make ends meet without them taking on additional jobs or any other things. That being said, instead of companies, doing the right thing, trying to do right by workers, well, they're doing this thing now where they're going to charge you for training you. I wish I could make this up. Unfortunately, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and the Justice Department and the Federal Trade Commission have received complaints about U.S. companies charging individuals who quit for their training. In this case, a Washington State beauty salon had charged one of their students $1,900 for training after she quit. It is amazing to me that this is what companies have decided to do. Now, keep in mind that was a nail salon, but other companies, which critics are calling Training Repayment Agreement Provisions, or TRAPs, which is a wonderful acronym for that, are starting to become more and more prevalent. And it is amazing to me. I say this wholeheartedly. It is amazing to me that companies are doing everything but what they should be doing, which is taking care of the workers, paying them proper wage, making sure they're getting benefits. That's the reason why you have a lot of strikes. That's the reason why you have a lot of unions trying to unionize. We'll talk about that later with Amazon and what happened in Albany. But it's amazing that companies are starting to go this route of doing training repayments. I will say this, if you ever do get one, don't sign it, because once you sign it, you are legally beholden to it. Is it legal? Yes, unfortunately, until you sign it. Now, granted, you don't have to sign it, and of course, they can go from there. But for the simple fact of the matter, guys, you have to be careful about these companies that are charging you for training you. It is amazing to me that companies are starting to nickel and dime their employees and then wonder why they can't find anybody. Oh, there's plenty of jobs out there, sure. But at the same time, if your job is crappy, your management is crappy, and the person that's the CEO is making muchu profits off of it, but still can't wonder why you can't fill your seats, might want to start at the top and work your way down. Just saying. But moving right along, guys, I did want to cover this. We did cover Governor Ron DeSantis, who decided to do an election police. You guys remember probably several months ago that Ron DeSantis said to make sure that we are preventing fraud in our election, as the midterm election is going to be next month. But real side note, please check your state. Early voting has happened in some states. I can say for where I am in Tennessee, early voting has happened. If you actually go to tnvote.gov, you can go to early voting sites. You can go ahead and skip the line if you want to skip the line, or I should say skip the madness if you want to, and go ahead and early vote. But definitely check your state's legislature or your secretary or your county clerk to see when early voting is in your area. I highly encourage you to do that, as well as, make sure the candidates that you're voting for actually represent your interests. That being said, guys, again, back to Governor DeSantis, who decided to create an election police force because they considered it massive fraud. They've only found 20 people. And of those 20 people, each situation seems to be sketchy, like this woman here.
We have a warrant for your arrest.
For what?
For voter fraud. A newly obtained police body camera video shows Tampa police officers arresting Ramona Oliver for allegedly voting illegally in the 2020 election.
All right. So I know you're caught off guard, but unfortunately that's how this stuff works, okay?
I'm like, what the hell?
So,
okay.
Yep.
I'm like, voter fraud. I voted, but I ain't commit no fraud.
well, so that's the thing. I don't know exactly what happened with it, but you do have a warrant. That's what it's for.
The videos, first reported by the Tampa Bay Times, provide a fresh glimpse into a far-reaching state operation in August to crack down on supposed voter fraud.
The state of Florida has charged and is in the process of arresting 20 individuals across the state for voter fraud. These folks voted illegally in this case, and there's going to be other grounds for other prosecutions in the future. They are disqualified from voting because they've been convicted of either murder or sexual assault.
Oliver is a convicted felon. She served 20 years in state prison for second-degree murder, according to her attorney, Mark Rankin. Her attorney told CNN Oliver was approached at a bus stop one day on the way to work by someone registering voters, and she told them she was a felon. Rankin says the person then told Oliver that she could fill out the form, and if she was eligible, she would get a voter registration card. He says Oliver later received a voter registration card in the mail and therefore thought she was eligible to vote.
I got out. The guy told me that I was free and clear to go vote for whatever cause I done my time.
Yep.
I was free. I ain't owe nobody nothing.
Okay. Yeah. Like I said, I don't know what happened. All I know is that you have a warrant, and all it does is say you have a warrant, and I got to go arrest you.
Her attorney says, quote, she served her time and got out, and she got out around the time that Amendment 4 was passed, which affected the rights of felons to vote. Her understanding was that felons had their rights restored. Oliver pleaded not guilty to the illegal voting charge and has a trial set for December. These were the first arrests by Governor Ron DeSantis' newly formed Florida Office of Election Crimes and Security, which was an agency created to probe alleged voting irregularities. Almost immediately after the charges were filed, questions surfaced about whether the individual knew they were violating the law by voting. CNN affiliate WPLG spoke to one of the individuals arrested, Ronald Miller.
I got it out the mailbox thinking that my rights were restored as the guy told me when I had filled the paper out. So I was happy.
Miller, a convicted felon who served time for murder, also says he received a voter ID card in the mail and was arrested in August for allegedly violating the state's voting laws.
1, 2, 3, 4, and all over like this at the door with assault rifles, U.S. Marshal like this. My house surrounded.
And John, here's something important to note. Here in the state of Florida, state law requires the state to notify local election officials if a voter is convicted of a felony or not eligible to vote. In the 5 counties where these arrests took place, the local election supervisors tell CNN the state did not inform them that these voters were not eligible.
So if you really look at this for a second, now, again, I'm going to be honest with you. This whole Department of Election Crimes and Securities is really bullshit. Ron DeSantis is doing everything that he can, along with the Republicans, to sway the votes in their favor because they pretty much ignored the turnout that happened previously, which said hid their failure in cheap packing. But now they've made sure, okay, we're going to take away, we're going to curtail mail-in votes. We're going to take away voting. We're going to take away certain voting polls. We're going to change the laws to where you can only do certain mail-in votes. You can't do drop-in ballots unless you follow these conditions. And Amendment 4. Let's not forget Amendment 4. Amendment 4, for all those that don't remember, was Florida's proposition to restore the rights of felons. Now, if the rights were restored to felons, that means that they can go out and vote. It is also based on the content that they have completed their sentences, paid any restitutions, and of course, if the state finds no fault with them, their rights are restored. Which goes back to the question of, okay, if these felons were unable to vote, why in the blue hell were they able to get voter ID cards? See, this is why I say the whole election police and security thing is smoke and mirrors. It's a waste of government taxpayer money. Actually, it's a waste of taxpayer money, actually. Because, Ron DeSantis and so many others kept saying election fraud happened. The election was stolen. Trump should have been president. So many of them used to say it out loud, but it kind of died off as their elections come up. But it is amazing that they still say election fraud. And they say they have arrested 20 people in 5 counties. 20 people in 5 counties when Florida has an estimated population of over 15 million. Doesn't even amount to drop in the bucket, doesn't it? But again, this is why I'm saying that every one of their cases, if you receive a voter ID card in the mail after registering, you would think that, hey, I can vote, no problem. But it's amazing that after you voted, they come after you and say, well, you voted illegally. Who stopped me? The county clerk didn't stop me. The polling officer did not stop me. Everybody said I was good. I have a voter ID card. How am I supposed to know that I couldn't vote? And of course, Governor DeSantis seems to miss that little part, that his administration doled out those voter ID cards to these individuals. So if anybody's at fault, it's not the people that registered and got their cards and thought that, oh, I have my rights to vote are restored. It's his administration. They create the problem and then turn around there and say, who did this? It was your administration, Governor DeSantis. Unfortunately, nobody is strong enough to run against you because in Florida is a strong, strong red state, and the failure in chief for its intents and purposes still reside there. But speaking of midterms, guys, Georgia has had quite the number of debates that have happened, and it is amazing to me that Georgia, being a swing state, which could possibly swing the power of the Senate either to the Democrats or the Republicans, because like I said, Republicans are hoping that their constituents are amnesia-labeled idiots, because people. I'm trying to be nice, but how else do you keep voting conservative unless you're rich, corporation, or they actually fit your interests, which fits the interest of an old white guy? Why do you think that they serve your interests? But yet people keep voting for them. Red states always vote for red states, except for the instance of Georgia, because Georgia, during its special election last year, voted blue. So how do we do with these debates? Well, some were good and some too were downright terrible. Let's start with Stacey Abrams, because her and Brian Kemp went at it, and needless to say, it was an ass whooping.
For the midterm elections. In Georgia, it's not only about the House and the Senate.
This is the general election debate among candidates for governor.
Facing off Monday night in their first of 2 scheduled debates, Stacey Abrams, a Democrat, Shane Hazel, a Libertarian, and the incumbent Governor Brian Kemp, a Republican, each making the case for deserving their vote.
The current failures we have seen in this state are not only damning, they are disqualifying. And over the next few years, we have an opportunity to change the trajectory of the state.
My desire is to continue to help them fight through 40-year high inflation and high gas prices and other things that our Georgia families are facing right now, quite honestly, because of bad policies in Washington, D.C.
Governor Kemp campaigning for a second term and has led polling in the race. But for many Georgians, this election is a rematch of the 2018 contest between Kemp and Abrams. While a federal judge ruled last month Georgia's election law did not violate voters' constitutional rights, in response to a lawsuit brought by Abrams-founded group Fair Fight Action starting in 2018, the Democratic candidate repeated some of these accusations to Georgia voters.
We need a governor who believes in access to the right to vote and not in voter suppression, which is the hallmark of Brian Kemp's leadership.
Governor Kemp pushed back against Abrams' claims.
For someone to say that we have been suppressive in our state when we've seen turnout increase over the years, including with minorities like African Americans, Latinos, and others, is simply not true.
The two also faced off on the issues of business ownership for minorities and social equity.
We are the ones that have been fighting for you when Miss Abrams was not. We were giving tax refunds. We were doing tax cuts. We were suspending the gas tax to help you deal with 40-year high inflation when she was criticizing us.
Stacey Abrams, 30-second rebuttal.
I would point out that Mr. Kemp did not address the needs of purchasing and contracts for Black and Brown-owned businesses. He has said that we need to study it. I would tell him, just cheat off of my paper. I know the answer.
The heated debate comes as early voting begins in Georgia, the Peach State, home to another critical midterm race. And it is here where control of the Senate, which is split 50-50, could be decided. Incumbent Democrat Raphael Warnock facing Republican nominee Herschel Walker in a close race. Casting his ballot Monday, Reverend Warnock renewed his attacks against Walker.
My opponent, Herschel Walker, is not ready. I pointed out the fact that he claimed to be in law enforcement, to be a police officer, and that he threatened a shootout with the police. And his response was to produce a fake badge.
Appearing on NBC's The Today Show, Walker once again showed his honorary sheriff's badge, which he previously claimed was legitimate in a debate last week, and denied allegations of domestic violence made by his son.
I love my son Christian. I love my whole family. I'll always love them and stuff. That's what I say for my son Christian. And I don't have any violence.
Ooh, I'm sorry. I cringed a little bit when you see, okay, first off, let's start with Stacey Abrams. Brian Kemp seems to be a little lost, but then again, this is what all conservatives do. All conservatives, if you ever look at their debates, they are repeating the exact same talking points. He sat there and said that we gave plenty of assistance and financial help to Georgians. Yes, you gave well over 18 million to corporations, but you didn't give them to small business. You suspended the gas tax. Yes, for corporations, not individuals. And Stacey Abrams sat there and said, and she said it so eloquently, she says, he doesn't know what to do. Now, about the voting thing, keep in mind, Brian Kemp earlier this year purged well over 75,000 voter registrations from the state of Georgia's roll. 75,000 signatures. I wonder why that is. Maybe it's because of the influx of minority voters that came to actually vote last year in the special election when him and Stacey Abrams were around the first time. It wasn't any. It's amazing that he points that out, but it wasn't for him. Brian Kemp is trying his hardest to keep his job, and right now it's not looking great. Now, moving on to Herschel Walker, I'm trying my hardest. How is this man still favored? Keep in mind, let's go down Herschel Walker's list, shall we? Herschel Walker said that he graduated at the top of his class at the University of Georgia. That was a lie. He said that he was a law enforcement agent. That was also a lie because he has an honorary Cracker Jack sheriff's badge. Do you know what honorary sheriffs can do? Honorary sheriffs is a title. It has no legal authority whatsoever. Anybody can have that badge. I could go down to any prop place, get a sheriff's badge just like his. It has no benefit. Oh, let's not forget the abortion thing that came up because he says he didn't know the woman. Turns out he did know the woman. Can't remember whether or not that he paid for the abortion, but is definitely pro-life. And the piece de resistance of it all. His son comes out and says, you are a terrible father. You don't watch for none of your kids. You just take for yourself. Let me tell you something. When one of your kids comes out and says you're a terrible individual on a political scape, it is hard to bounce back from that. But again, the problem with Republicans is that as much of a train wreck as Walker is, the simple fact of the matter, they will use him as long as it gets them power in Congress. That's all it is. Republicans could care less about pro-life. They really could. They just realize that a bunch of idiots who believe that they should protect unborn children will vote anybody who votes they're interested in. And if you have enough numbers, you can force your opinions on everybody. That's what pro-life people have done. And that's why so many Republicans have said, oh, well, if I say I'm pro-life, you'll go along with it. Also see Christians. But the thing about it is, which amazes me so, is that somehow Walker is still in this. Warnock should have been a landslide. Because the only thing about Raphael Warnock was, his breakup with his wife, questions of domestic abuse, which again, he's already answered. But Walker hasn't said anything that your other Republican hasn't already said. that we need to do something about this situation that we created, the Democrats are trying to fix, but we're not going to help them, but we're going to point it out anyway. That's all Republicans. Even more so, you have Republicans playing victim. Who you ask? Well, let's talk to America's favorite crossed over QAnon who gets paid for doing nothing because she literally has no responsibilities in Congress, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who says she's a victim. Imagine that.
Taylor Greene running against Democrat Marcus Flowers. And they had a pretty fiery debate too. And in that debate, Flowers called Marjorie Taylor Greene an insurrectionist. Let's take a listen to that clip.
You cannot accuse me of insurrection. I was a victim of the January 6th riot just as much as any other member of Congress. That was the third day I had on the job. I had nothing to do with what happened there that day, and I will not have you accuse me of that. That is wrong of you to do. You're lying about me, and you will not defame my character in that manner.
Now, that race is not as close as the Warnock-Walker race. Do you think that debate, that moment, any of those moments moved the needle?
No, I think this race, this district is over 60% Republican leaning. It would be very hard for a Democrat to win. That being said, we know Marjorie Taylor Greene is this national, far-right Republican figure, and therefore both she and her Democratic opponent have a lot of attention. They're raising buku dollars. And so I think the debate will help in that effort, but the debate really won't change the dynamic.
And she's absolutely right. Unfortunately, why? Republicans are idiots. They will still vote Marjorie Taylor Greene, who calls herself a victim, but was spouting QAnon, BS when she was running. She still was counting QAnon stuff when she was in office. Went against several minority congressmen of the same freshman class she was in. And then on top of that, your extracurricular activities that were found out that which your husband divorced you for. I mean, part of your family values always get caught with their hand in the cookie jar, I'm just saying. But to call herself a victim is effing laughable. It is. It's effing laughable. But she's understood that in order for her to get through this, she has to appeal to the Republican base. How do you appeal to the Republican base? You're basically their poster child. White, blonde, and blue-eyed. I mean, it's a blueprint for Fox News. It might as well be the blueprint for the Republican Party. But again, it amazes me so that Republicans still have a chance in this. This is why this is alarming, that with all these idiots that are running for office, Republicans still have a shot. This is why voting definitely matters, especially in that battleground state of Georgia. But only matters because we haven't got rid of the Electoral College yet. But that's a whole nother story. But moving right along, guys, if you hadn't already learned or heard the grapevine through social media, well, student loan forgiveness is now online.
Forgiveness website is officially live now, and President Biden says more than 40 million Americans can stand to benefit from the student debt relief. Most of these people making less than $75,000 annually, and they're taking applications. Our business correspondent Alexis Christopher is joining us with more. Okay, break it all down for us.
Well, Kiro, people have through December of next year to apply. They can do this at studentaid.gov. And the application process, they say, is pretty easy and streamlined. They're going to need some information from folks like your name, of course, your social security number, and also proof of a job and your earnings. They're looking at your 2020 and 2021 income taxes to see if you qualify. Qualifications are pretty broad, too, up to $10,000 in loan forgiveness for someone, an individual earning under $125,000 a year, or a couple earning under $250,000 a year combined. They'll also forgive up to $20,000 in loans for borrowers who received Pell Grants, and that usually goes to low-income people.
So people have, as you mentioned, through December clearly to do this. So how soon will people see relief after they apply for the program?
That's a great question. And the Biden administration says it should only take a few weeks to start to have the process approved and to have it approved for an individual. They want to do this as quickly as possible because remember, in January, those student loan payments resume again. So they want to try to quicken this here. Timing does matter. The department wants to discharge as many debts as possible and also limit borrower confusion before January comes?
So a lot of people are not eligible, right? And those that are may still be left with a pretty huge chunk of debt even after the benefits of this program. So what are some tips that borrowers can use to help pay off that debt?
That's true. When you consider that the average student debt is $30,000, it's going to take somebody between 10 and 30 years to pay that off. They can't do things like start a family or buy a home because they're burdened with that debt. So there are some things that you can do. If you can, make additional payments when possible, because that's going to cut the principal more quickly. It will also reduce the interest that you accrue and, of course, the total payoff time. If you have multiple student loans, pay down those with the highest interest rates first and set up automatic payments. This is so important. Some lenders will actually give you a discount for doing this. That way you're not going to forget to make your payment. And also ask your employer about repayment assistance or tuition reimbursement. Lots of companies are doing this, including companies like Starbucks, Walmart. And as a last resort, and this is a last resort, you can request a deferment or forbearance to temporarily postpone your payments. But beware here, because depending on the kind of loan you have, you may still have to pay the interest that accrues on that debt, even though it's going to be frozen. And of course, if you get a tax refund at the end of the year, instead of going on vacation or buying a new TV, you can pay down that student debt. That's probably the prudent thing to do, Kira.
People deserve a vacation. That's
You know, I was with that until the very end. I was with that until the very end. Okay, I have said this many times. Okay, I am completely, happy that Biden kept his promise. It was a small promise. His campaign promised he was going to do something about student debt. He hung around that number 10,000 because it was safe. Because Biden is a centrist president, which centrists are like moderate Democrats, basically Republican light. Just enough to be considered Democratic, but all the way conservative. He still believes that somehow, some way, people who's making less than their paychecks in the current economy can somehow still pay off their student loan debt. Okay, don't know how, but he has forgiven. But he wants to forgive up to $20,000 for all those making less than $125K. If you're single, $250 if you're filing as a married couple. I still say this could have been more. I still say that we could have forgiven student loan debt in general, because right now, as I check every day, the total amount of student loan debt is over $1.7 trillion. If you think about it, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan cost the U.S. nearly $7 trillion. So anytime someone sits there and tells you we can't afford student loan debt payoff for all, we afforded 2 wars for nearly the better part of 3 decades. We can afford to pay everybody off. At the same time, Republicans wouldn't let this go. The moment Biden got this passed, Republicans start chewing at the bill. Oh, well, these people with these kind of loans, they don't qualify. We're not going to have it. We're going to sue. Or, the banks can't collect the interest payments off these individuals, so we're going to sue parts of that law too. They did the same thing to Obamacare. They're going to do the same thing to the student loan forgiveness program. All the more reason why Biden should have went ahead and pulled the trigger, because as I've said, if he wants to guarantee that the Democrats will keep the House, all he can do is one of two things. Granted, he's went half-assed on a few. He's did student loan debt to a certain degree. Still could have done more. He wants to look into decriminalizing marijuana. Why not? We literally have over 10 states where marijuana is legal. How about we finally end the so-called war on drugs? Marijuana was never a drug anyway. It was just an excuse to throw more money into the defense budget. That's all it was. But we've seen what marijuana can do. It's many applications, both medical, medicinal, and mechanical, because that plant has a lot of uses. But for some unknown reason, people believe that we have to make sure marijuana is illegal, but you can pop fentanyl, you can pop oxycodone, Percocets, you name it, you can pop it. No problem. But marijuana, we still got to classify that, which Biden said he's looking into. But had he did one of two things, or both, Democrats would be guaranteed for the rest of his first term, even though we're not sure if Biden's going to make it to his next term at this rate. But speaking of the president, he wants to make another move in the world of gas prices. Aside from, sucking up to the Audi family didn't work, He has to go back to Old Faithful, our Strategic Petroleum Oil Reserve.
President Biden is expected to authorize the release of 15 million barrels of oil from the nation's emergency stockpile in an attempt to bring down gas prices. It will mark the last of the 180 million barrels Biden previously pledged to release.
Definitely, more supply could lead to cheaper gas prices.
But critics say the 15 million barrels is a drop in the bucket, considering the U.S. consumes about 20 million barrels per day.
More supply is always better for gas prices, but we're just going to have to see what happens with demand and also with crude oil prices.
Although Biden is making the announcement today, the 15 million barrels will not be released until December. The president also doubling down on another big issue,
which is basically what we already discussed about student loans. So 15 million more barrels will be released from the strategic oil reserve that we have. Again, I cannot stress this enough. Can't stress this enough. We are eventually going to have to address our energy crisis problem. A lot of people, as far as oil, drilling and oil production is concerned, USA is number one, Saudi Arabia number two, Russia number three. We are still outproducing Saudi Arabia, even though they are sitting on the largest deposit of oil known to man. But they're not pumping as much as the U.S. is. We're not pumping as much as Russia is. But Republicans and conservatives want us to keep pumping more. Well, actually, Republicans and conservatives, they're the same people, but they're always talking about we need to drill more. We need to go offshore. We need to start going into our. Here's the thing about conservatives. They will always put capitalism first, environmental protection second, because they want to drill more. That's their answer to everything. We need more gas. Keep drilling. Not alternatives. Not electrical vehicles. Not renewable or green energy. The things that we should be looking into, because our fossil fuels on this planet is not infinite. Eventually, it will run out, and then what do you do? But as much as I'm trying to see Biden is trying to keep things afloat, unfortunately, that's not going to do much releasing from the strategic oil reserve. The simple fact of the matter is, we do need to finally address, aside from climate change, address our energy crisis problem. So, moving right along, guys. I did want to cover this as well because I talked about this last week about the union workers, the Amazon workers in Albany, New York, who are voting to unionize. Unfortunately, the answer back was that the vote itself was against unionization. The entire tally, 206 votes in favor of the union, 406 votes opposed. Even though officials said that 949 workers at the warehouse were eligible to vote on whether or not they should become part of the Amazon labor union. Four ballots were voided. And again, the results still have to be certified by the National Railroads Board. However, the Amazon labor union still believes that there is a whole lot of trickery afoot and will challenge the votes. Again, this is the problem I have with this. And I say this all the time. What Amazon has done, because they know they hate unions. Corporations hate unions. I've yet to be wrong about that. Corporations hate unions because they'll deal with you one-on-one. As a sole individual, you have no power. But if there's a lot of you guys in numbers, they have to deal with you. They have to play ball. Amazon has sat there and said, oh, well, we don't want to do that, but let's raise your pay to the highest pay in your state. Let's give you benefits from day one, but let's also work you like a dog under unsustainable conditions. But as long as you're getting paid the highest, as long as you're getting benefits, what are you complaining about? And unfortunately, with the fear of a lot of people, out of fear of retaliation for voting for a union, they're afraid that they'll lose their jobs. I can understand that to a certain extent, but this is what corporations bank on. The corporations bank on the simple fact of the matter is that you are more fearful of losing your job than being worked to death, simply put, because they pay you the highest and they give you benefits from the day one. But people are afraid of losing jobs because the simple fact of the matter is most people in America are maybe 1 or 2 paychecks from poverty. It's the truth. More than likely, you're 1 or 2 paychecks away from poverty. I mean, you're barely making ends meet now, myself included, but you're 1 or 2 paychecks away from poverty. So again, that does feed into the whole idea that some people fear of unionizing because they fear said company will retaliate. I've said the Michael Dell story all the time. I will keep saying it. Michael Dell hates unions. When I was working for Dell, we were told not to talk about unions because he would shut the site down and move everything to another site that was more Dell friendly and less labor friendly. Why? Because corporations hate unions. But unfortunately with Amazon, as they are now becoming the Walmart of e-commerce, or have been the Walmart of e-commerce for some time now, it still may take a while for unions to actually gain strength and for people to actually be brave and step out. We've seen it happen with Kellogg. We've seen what happened with John Deere. We've seen what happened with the Ohio Teachers Union and Seattle Washington teachers, who all went on strike and actually got the benefits and the pay increases, but they had to all go out on strike. This is why I keep saying, guys, unions work. Now, the next couple of stories are going to be a little rough, but I promise I'll try to get through them as fast as humanly possible. Kyle Rittenhouse, this fool, says that he is planning a YouTube channel about guns and the Second Amendment. We all remember Kyle Rittenhouse as the 18-year-old who had a firearms, who decided to go up to a city that he did not live in to defend businesses that didn't ask him to, and shot 3 people. Of course, he was later acquitted by his jury, which is still amazing to me. Well, he now decides that he wants to write he said in a short video that he wants to launch a YouTube channel talking about creating content about guns and talking about the Second Amendment. You know what? This is why I say so much only in America. Only in America could you shoot 3 people, get acquitted, and then turn around and talk about the fact of guns and Second Amendment. Let me tell you something about the Second Amendment. There's nothing to talk about it. There isn't. The Second Amendment is the right to bear arms against a tyrannical government and to create a local militia. That's it. The entire point. And I'm a gun owner. For all those that are wondering, I am a gun owner. But the Second Amendment, its entire thing, in its entirety, to defend yourself against a tyrannical government. The founding forefathers decided that we did not want the British monarchy to actually happen here with our government. So we're going to empower our citizens to defend themselves if the government ever gets too corrupt. That's it. The fact that they're taking it to such an extreme about, I could have this many guns, I could have this many bullets, I could have this type of gun or this and that, that's extreme. But they'll use the Second Amendment as the overall blanket statement. But what makes it worse is that a guy like Kyle Rittenhouse, who has been praised, mind you, he was praised at many conservative conventions. He was praised on Fox News, the conservative safe space. But now, as two people have lost their lives, one person did survive. He's about to keep his celebrity status. And like I said, only in America can a white man get away with murder and still be a star. Kind of bullshit. But the next story I got, guys, again, another story from Missouri. I know with Jackson, I know with everything else that's going on, it seems that one story after another story is coming out about this state. And this one is just, it takes the cake.
Our NBC News investigation into a discovery raising alarm in Missouri. Radioactive contamination on the grounds of an elementary school with hundreds of students. Kate Snow now on parents' concerns and how the government is responding.
PTA President Ashley Bernaw fought for years to find out if her son's elementary school was safe.
I don't think kids should have to worry about Manhattan waste bomb material on their playgrounds. It's really
now her fears confirmed. New test results reveal high radioactive lead levels in the kitchen, gym, boiler room, and playground soil at her son's school, Jana Elementary in Florissant, Missouri.
You don't want to be right that your kid's playground or the school is contaminated. And you are. Unfortunately, I am right.
The school sits beside Coldwater Creek. In the 1940s, radioactive bomb waste from World War II was dumped nearby and flowed here. The Army Corps of Engineers has been cleaning up the area for decades.
You've been asking for answers how long now? Since 2015.
When we met Bernaw over the summer, she told me about a day in 2018 when she noticed Army Corps trucks on the property.
That was the first official notice that I had that testing was beginning at my kid's school.
Just because you happened to notice it?
Yes.
She spent years trying to get those results, and this spring finally did. The Army Corps of Engineers found high levels of several radioactive chemicals near the school. But when she and others pushed the Corps to do more testing inside the school, she says they told her that was unnecessary.
I have a job to protect all of those kids, whether they're mine or not.
So Bernard pressured school officials to allow an outside company to run tests that just revealed that radioactive contamination inside the school. A new report today saying it's all likely an unacceptable risk to the children.
If we inhale some of these radioactive materials, they can actually get stored in our bodies where they're a hazard to us for many years.
Tonight, the Army Corps of Engineers telling NBC News the report is not consistent with our accepted evaluation techniques and must be thoroughly vetted, adding any contamination posing a high risk or immediate threat would be made a priority for remediation. Tonight, Bernard is pushing school officials to act quickly.
The school district needs to advocate for and see this cleaned up immediately.
The district saying safety is always our top priority, adding it is consulting with experts in this area of testing to determine next steps. For now, students are still in the school.
Yeah, students are still in that school. A school where radioactive waste has been found and the kids are near it. I mean, Flint, Michigan, Jackson, all areas where, again, you have a lot of this mess going on, and at the same time, you have the Army Corps going, well, that's not consistent with what we found. Okay, so you guys have admitted that wastewater from bomb making since World War II was pumped into a river that the school is next to. How do you not think for 1 second that that's not going to affect the school? I don't blame that parent. I don't blame that parent if she decided to take her kid out of that school. Because, again, it's amazing to me the level of, oh, well, we don't know how bad it is. What are you waiting for, that one kid to have a third eye in the middle of his head? Are you waiting for that one kid to grow an extra arm? Are you waiting for that one kid to look like Spider-Man? Because it's not cool about radioactivity. Kids being near it in the ground and the water is not good. At the same time, how quiet these school officials are about this says volumes. But then again, I say this about the South all the time, that if you look at the infrastructure of the South, southern states, I'm talking Kentucky, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Missouri, Mississippi, Georgia, if you look at those southern states and really look at their infrastructure, there is woeful, and I do mean woeful, repair needed. But how quiet officials truly are. But speaking of things that are not quiet, I hate to really talk about this, but Kanye West, he's in the news again. And I'll just play the video. There's just no other way I can put it.
Statements from the rapper formerly known as Kanye West could potentially find him embroiled in a legal battle with the family of George Floyd.
During a recent podcast interview, Ye, as he now goes by, questioned the cause of Floyd's death, suggesting it wasn't caused by Derek Chauvin, former Minneapolis police officer who was convicted of murder after he knelt on Floyd's neck for 9.5 minutes.
NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalas joins us now to break it all down. And Danny, I'm curious, what specifically did Ye say here? And could he be using some sort of free speech defense?
Possibly suggesting that George Floyd died of a fentanyl overdose. Does he have a defense? Well, that depends on if a lawsuit's ever brought. And although you may hear attorneys today saying we're considering a lawsuit, the magic words you didn't hear were we are filing a lawsuit. And that's because this would be a very difficult case. First, defamation, you can throw that out right away. You cannot defame a deceased person. So is it intentional infliction of emotional distress? Well, first, it has to be extreme and outrageous. And as we just saw, as an autopsy report concluded that there was fentanyl in George Floyd's system. So if the family wanted to litigate this, they would relitigate their loved one's death and then be litigating whether or not fentanyl contributed to the death. If fentanyl contributed to the death, then the defense will argue, Kanye, that this cannot be extreme and outrageous behavior because there was fentanyl in the system and it contributed to to his death.
Let's look closer at that, because it was civil rights attorney Lee Merritt who's represented the Floyd family. He condemned the remarks and he tweeted, "Well, one cannot defame the dead. The family of George Floyd is considering suit for Kanye's false statements about the manner of his death, claiming Floyd died from fentanyl, not the brutality established, criminally and civilly undermines and diminishes the Floyd's family's fight." So what is the legal action that they could possibly pursue here if it's not defamation?
By the way, I saw Lee's comments. We can put them right back up if they're still there. I agree with every word that he said. There you go. It undermines and diminishes the Floyd family's right. I agree with that. Was it rude to say? Yes. Was it insensitive? Yes. Is it legally actionable? I think his statement falls short of saying that we're only considering legal action. But the reality is this would be a very difficult case to prove using the extreme and outrageous standard. What you see normally with intentional infliction of emotional distress, and I've alleged it myself, it's at the end of a long list of other claims. Why? It's kind of a catch-all. It's never your strongest case because it's very difficult to prove. So you put it in at the end. Maybe it's a bargaining chip, maybe not, but it's not your lead cause of action if you have a good case. So this is a very difficult case to make out. I don't anticipate there will be a lawsuit, but no harm in saying on the record, like Lee did, that this was inappropriate and we're considering legal action.
And Danny, real quick, we know that Merritt also said that they're considering potentially similar pursuit against Candace Owens, who made a documentary about George Floyd. Could this same approach kind of apply to her legally?
You might have a stronger case in the case of a documentary simply because there are so many statements contained in that documentary. But again, defamation, you almost completely rule that out because if it's a deceased person, they can't be defamed. If it's the family, maybe they were defamed, but you'd have to look very closely at the documentary. That would be hard to prove. But if there is a false statement in there that somehow causes extreme harm, you'd have to prove it was extreme and outrageous. It's a very difficult standard, but possibly with a documentary because it's an hour plus long, however long it is. You have a lot of statements in there that could potentially meet that standard. It's just a difficult standard to meet.
Extreme and outrageous.
Extreme and outrageous.
All right. Danny Savalas breaking it all down. Danny.
Okay, so I have to ask this question. Because it's amazing he didn't mention the case of Alex Jones. Now, I'm not a lawyer, not pre-law, paralegal, not the same. But I do believe that if a case has precedent, that they can use it. Keep in mind, Alex Jones was being sued by the parents of Sandy Hook for defamation of character, saying that Sandy Hook didn't happen, there were crisis actors, threat actors, that this was all a ruse. He was saying that on his show InfoWars. Now, keep in mind, the family sued him. I think they got $950 million. Now, they may never see that money, but they won their case. So yeah, I'm a little thrown off that, you're telling me that, Kanye, who decided to insinuate that that George Floyd died from fentanyl and not from Derek Chauvin leaning on his neck to the point to where he's asphyxiated was the reason. That's defamation of character. And to a certain extent, yeah, I guess you can't defame the dead, but at the same time, you are dismissing the fact. And also an update to this, that the family did file a lawsuit against Kanye West, $250 million, by the way. But it is amazing to me that, first off, I'm not even getting to Kanye West. He's an idiot. He's an idiot, a troll that just loves attention. That's him. But when you do say things out of spite, free speech, and I don't know why we have to keep having this conversation about free speech. Here's the thing about free speech. You can say whatever it is that you want to say. You are not absolved of the consequences that follow. For example, if you decide to say anti-Semitic comments, you will face the wrath of that. Kanye has. That's why he doesn't mention anything anymore. Remember when Nick Cannon sat there and claimed that the real Jews are black people and how that happened? Lost his job at one of his very, lost one of his jobs at his very prolific shows. All because he was using free speech. Now, again, this is why I sit there and say with free speech, guys, free speech does not mean you can say whatever it is that you want. That's where the failure in chief, when he was in office, allowed a lot of stuff to fly. Grab him by the kid, grab him by the cookie. I moved on her like a bee in heat. The fact that he said all these things and got away with it seems to empower a lot of people to do the same. And I keep saying this. When he was president, yes, unfortunately, he was given a unfortunate clear line to say whatever it is without zero consequence. And yet some people believe to this day and age, you can do that too. You can't. No matter if you're a celebrity or just a regular old Joe like myself. Whatever you say in life, you are beholden to the consequences of. You can say whatever you want, but you're not absolved from it. Kanye West is about to learn that lesson the hard way. But we're going to go ahead and move on to our feel-good segment because usually on How the Frack we got here, we usually talk about doom and gloom. But hey, it's hump day. It's Wednesday. Tomorrow's Friday, which is Thursday. So we do want to leave you guys out with some good vibes. And hopefully this next story will be it because it's about a business owner based out of Atlanta that people have been telling me if I'm not vegan, I like meat. But they keep saying you need to check this place out because not only is this restaurateur, this businesswoman is serving amazing food, she is actually expanding her empire. And again, the name she came up with, I have to admit, makes me want to go try it.
Head, Big Dog, and Dance Hall Queen. Those are just some of the menu items that we can safely say on TV from Slutty Vegan. What started as a food truck is now a multi-million-dollar brand with billion-dollar dreams. And our business reporter, Alexis Christoforous, stopped by the new Brooklyn location and sat down with the brain behind it all.
I bring you in with a raunchy name, but then you realize that we are a business around community.
Slutty Vegan is the brainchild of restaurateur Pinky Cole. At the grand opening of her 7th location in Brooklyn, New York, fans lined up around the block for Pinky's unique take on plant-based food. What began 4 years ago as a single vegan food truck in Atlanta has quickly become a cultural phenomenon.
That's Slutty Vegan!
Each new restaurant location strategically chosen.
When I look for locations, they have to check one of these boxes. Either be in a vegan food desert, be in a food desert, not so attractive to developers, or right in the heart of gentrification. We are being the resource that people need.
With a cult following that includes Snoop Dogg, Queen Latifah, and Spike Lee, Slutty Vegan recently caught the attention of Shake Shack founder Danny Meyer's venture firm, which made a $25 million investment in the company. Now, Pinky says she's on a mission to build a billion-dollar brand.
We're looking at the next future billionaire because of the hard work and the effort that I put in. And I hope that when people see me, I resonate with their spirit and they believe that they can do whatever they want to do because they see me do it.
If Pinky Cole seems to be everywhere, that's because she is. From magazine covers and cookbooks to plant-based ad campaigns and her own Steve Madden sneaker, Cole is reinventing vegan food culture with menu items like Fussy Hussy burgers and Skinny Dipper fried pickles.
There's like an evangelical feel to your restaurant and to what you do here.
And when you walk through the door of this church, we're going to laugh with you. We're going to jump and play with you. The music is booming. The vibe is high. Everything that you're looking for is right here at this place of business.
Raised by a single mother in Baltimore, Maryland, Pinky found her inspiration.
The day that I was born, my father was being sentenced to prison. He ended up serving 22 years in prison. So I grew up in a household with a mother who was a workaholic. Maybe that's where I get it from.
Focused on paying it forward, Pinky says it's not just about the food, it's about community.
When they laugh at that idea that you had, go build that business and come back and make them work for you. Find aspiration in the losses.
After giving this year's commencement speech at her alma mater of Clark Atlanta University, Pinky gifted each of the 834 graduates their own limited liability company, allowing many of them who took her up on it to start their own business.
I'm all about giving back and bringing people up as I climb. I'm confident that there are going to be some million-dollar businesses created outside of what I did.
Her Pinky Cole Foundation working to lift up Black and brown communities, handing out fresh fruits and vegetables to underserved neighborhoods, paying rent for struggling businesses, and purchasing life insurance for young Black men.
It's really a way to bridge that generational wealth gap for people who want opportunities, who look like me, and who just want to rise above the status quo.
Teaching the next generation about entrepreneurship by example.
Advice for other people looking to do what you're doing and advice on brand building.
You have to be a disruptor. If you are not a disruptor, then you can't play in this game.
That's that big boy. One sloppy toppy and fussy hussy. Slutty vegan scaling now. Harlem World coming soon.
With the slutty vegan brand now valued at $100 million, Pinky is crafting a legacy, one vegan burger at a time.
Okay, Alexis. First.
Now that's cool. Like I said, I love the fact of seeing, I love to see black people succeed. That never gets old. I just love that. I might go to Atlanta and try Slave Vegan. I might try the burger. I mean, is he gonna maybe go vegan? Absolutely not. But hey, I'll give it a shot. But that's gonna do it for our podcast, guys. Again, I do apologize for the lateness of this. I promise next time will be better. But do want to thank you guys that watched, that liked, that shared, let people know this is live. I certainly appreciate it. Some shameless plugging, guys, before we do get out of here. Shout out to my guy, Big Vaughn. Big BZ Dot and all socials. The Von Westwood on Facebook. Definitely check him out, especially on TikTok. As is What Is Big BZ Thinking, as well as his beats. He is back to producing beats, so definitely check him out there. As for you guys, all my socials actually you can be found on Black Fox 447. It's whether it's Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, or Twitter. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter too. I usually post everything that I watch and review, especially at gym stuff, because I do a couple push-ups. At the same time, guys, keep in mind the link at the bottom and make that just a little bit bigger. If you copy and paste that into your browser, we'll take you to the link tree that has the YouTube and Facebook groups for all of my podcasts, How the Frack Got Here, Get Bit, and of course, the Offense Podcast. Again, guys, I say this all the time. We do need to work on unity, especially with black people. I will never stop saying that. We need to work on unity. We need to really come together. We need to learn to be nicer. I'm not asking you guys to be freaking saints, but I'm like, especially brothers, say hi, say hello. Also, check up on your loved ones, check up on your friends, check up on your families. We are so used to this pandemic putting us in our own homes that we forget to check on our people. And trust me, we're all fighting a battle that nobody may know about, but just checking on them, making sure they're good, they're straight, they're all right, they just want to talk. You may do more than just uplift their spirits. You may save a life in the process. The last thing I'll say, guys, is just that if you are going to be out and about, like, me, and I do apologize, I'm kind of fighting a cold right now. If you are going to be out and about, especially in high traffic areas, please wear a mask. The coronavirus, we're still in a pandemic. I know corona doesn't get talked about a lot. Shoot, even monkeypox hasn't been brought up in a while. But we are still in a pandemic. Coronavirus and its many variants are still out there. If you're going to be in a high traffic area, please wear a mask. Please protect yourself. When you protect yourself, you protect others. If you feel sick in the slightest, please stay home. Because again, that's how we're gonna get past this pandemic if everybody follows this freaking rules. That being said, guys, last thing I say about How the Frack Got Here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information, allowing you to make up your own mind, but provide a logical perspective that goes along with it. We do a lot better in society as we're informed. We're progressive, we move forward, we try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that we should have done back then, like electing our first black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, electing our first black 4-star military general into the armed forces. All great things. We don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's why we keep asking ourselves, why does everything go up at your paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians but still the same old story? And more importantly, how the frack got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. And again, if you're watching this on replay, please comment if it's live. I still know what you think. Take care of yourselves and each other, and we will all get through this. Peace.